Listen up. What if I told you that the richest people in the world, guys like Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, or Mark Zuckerberg, don't actually get paid in the way you and I get paid? They don't get a weekly paycheck that just shows up in a bank account. The vast majority of their income, the thing that makes them billionaires, isn't even called income by the IRS. It's something else entirely. And because it's something else, they can access billions of dollars without ever paying a dime in taxes on it, sometimes for decades. This isn't illegal tax evasion. It's a brilliant, completely legal system designed to keep their money growing exponentially. It's the difference between you working for your money and your money working for you. But even more than that, it is about shifting their compensation into a different kind of asset that the tax system simply doesn't touch until a very specific moment. Today, we're rediving into the absolute secret behind the biggest fortunes in the world: stock options and restricted stock units, RSUs. We're going to break down exactly how big tech CEOs use these tools to build massive fortunes while deferring, minimizing, or sometimes completely eliminating their biggest tax bill. It's a fatal flaw in the system, and it is quietly changing who holds the economic power in the world. Let's start with a problem that every single high-level tech executive faces. Imagine you are the CEO of a successful company like Google or Amazon. You are paid a salary, sure, but your salary might only be $1 million a year. That $1 million is taxed heavily right away at the highest bracket. But your company is worth $2 trillion. How do you get access to that massive wealth without triggering the taxman? The challenge for the board of directors is simple. They want to reward the CEO for making the company grow, but they want to keep the CEO focused on the long term. If they just gave the CEO $100 million in cash every year, the CEO might just retire or spend it all. So they need a compensation method that ties the CEO's personal wealth directly to the success of the company years into the future. The solution they came up with is a system of complex financial instruments, but they boil down to two main things: stock options and restricted stock units, RSUs. These are how the system is rigged. These two tools are the engine of wealth for the top 0.1%. Let's break down the restricted stock unit, or RSU, first, because it's the simpler of the two, and often where younger tech workers start. An RSU is exactly what it sounds like. It has a promise from the company to give you shares of stock, but only after certain conditions are met. These conditions are called vesting requirements. For a senior executive, the board might grant them 100,000 RSUs today. But those shares vest over 4 years, meaning they get $25,000 shares each year, starting 1 year from now. Now, here's the crucial part. When the RSUs are granted, when the board says, "Hey, we're giving you 100,000 RSUs," there is no tax consequence. Why? Because it's just a promise. You don't own the shares yet. The IRS only taxes you when you actually receive something of value. The tax crisis, the tax moment, only hits when the shares vest. The moment those $25,000 shares land in your brokerage account, the IRS says, this is ordinary income, and you are taxed at your regular income tax rate. So, if those $25,000 shares are worth $100 each when they vest, that's $2.50 million in ordinary income, and the CEO pays around 37% federal tax on that immediately. That's a huge tax bill, but it's delayed until the vest date, and it's still better than getting cash right away. Now, here's where the deferral and the fortune building begins. The moment those shares vest, the CEO has a choice to make, or often the company makes it for them. The company will typically sell just enough shares, maybe $40 per dollar of the shares, to cover the tax bill. This is called a sell-to-cover transaction. The CEO is now left with $60 per dollar of the shares, say $15,000 shares, and zero immediate cash out of pocket. They have essentially paid their tax bill with stock, and now they hold the remaining stock. This is the key. Those $15,000 shares are no longer ordinary income. They are now capital assets. The CEO doesn't sell them. They just hold them. And if the stock price goes up, say from $100 to $500 over the next 10 years, that entire increase, the $400 per share gain, is untaxed. It is only taxed when the CEO finally sells those $15,000 shares years later. And here's the kicker. Because they held them for more than 1 year, the gain is taxed as long-term capital gains. So they used an RSU to convert high-taxed ordinary income into low-taxed capital gains, and they defer the payment of that lower tax for years or even decades. That's the first trick. But that's just the warm-up. The real game is played with stock options, specifically non-qualified stock options, NSOs, and even more importantly, incentive stock options, ISOs. This is where the true power of tax-deferred fortune lies. A stock option is not a promise to give you shares. It's a right to buy shares at a fixed price, called the strike price or the grant price, regardless of what the stock is trading for later. Let's use an example. Imagine a hot new tech startup goes public. On the first day of the IPO, the stock is trading at $10. The CEO is granted 1 million stock options with a strike price of $10. This means for the next 10 years, the CEO has the right to buy 1 million shares for exactly $10 each. The stock options will also have a vesting schedule, just like RSUs, usually 4 years. For the first 4 years, the CEO can't exercise the option. They are still tied to the company's success. This is what the board wants. Now, let's fast forward 5 years. The company is wildly successful, and the stock is now trading at $110. The CEO's options have fully vested. The CEO now has the right to buy stock worth $110 for only $10. The CEO decides to exercise the option. They spend $10 million of their own money, 1 million options times $10, to buy 1 million shares. Immediately, the difference between the strike price, $10, in the case of non-qualified stock options, NSOs, that $100 million is taxed immediately as ordinary income at the $37 percentile rate. This is a huge tax bill, and it can be a significant cash crunch, which is why executives often sell just enough of the newly acquired stock right away to pay that tax bill. But again, they keep the majority of the shares. Now, let's talk about the true cheat code, the financial instrument that is the foundation of the wealthiest fortunes, the incentive stock option, ISO. With ISOs, the spread that $100 million paper gain is not taxed as ordinary income at the time of exercise, provided certain rules are followed. This is a massive immediate tax deferral. The CEO has locked in a $100 million paper gain and hasn't paid a penny to the IRS. The only tax consequence the CEO faces when exercising an ISO is the possibility of the alternative minimum tax, AMT, a parallel tax system designed to make sure high-income earners pay some minimum tax. But even the AMT is typically just a fraction of the ordinary income tax they would have paid with NSOs. The key to unlocking the full power of the ISO and the ultimate tax advantage is holding on to the shares for the required period. To get the maximum benefit, the CEO must hold the shares for at least 2 years from the grant date and at least 1 year from the exercise date. If they meet this simple holding period, the entire $100 million spread, the money they made by buying low and the stock as future growth, is no longer taxed as ordinary income at all. It is all converted into low-rate long-term capital gains. Think about that. A CEO can turn a $100 million payday that would normally be taxed at $37 percentile into a $100 million asset that is taxed at $20 percentile or less, and they even have to pay that lower tax for years or decades until they finally decide to sell. This is the system. This is the mechanism that generates those staggering headlines you see. CEO's net worth increases by $5 billion in a single year. This growth is almost entirely composed of unrealized capital gains locked up in these carefully managed ISO shares. This is the first major pillar of the strategy. The second pillar is how they actually use the money. Because even with this tax deferral, you still have to pay the tax eventually, right? And the CEO needs cash for private jets, mansions, and their multi-million-dollar annual expenses. This leads us to the fatal economic maneuver we discussed in the last video, but which works hand in glove with stock options. Buy, borrow, die. The CEO has millions of shares of stock, acquired cheaply through ISOs, now worth billions. They have a massive tax liability deferred into the future, but they need cash today. What they absolutely do not do is sell the stock. If they sell it, they instantly realize those capital gains and the clock starts ticking on a massive tax payment. Instead, they walk into a bank, Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, and they take out a securities-backed loan or a margin loan. They put up their stock shares as collateral. They are essentially saying, here's my $5 billion in stock. LEND me $100 million. The bank happily agrees because the risk is zero. If the CEO defaults, the bank just takes the stock. Crucially, when you take out a loan, that money is not income. The $100 million the CEO gets is a debt, not a salary. Therefore, it is $100% dollar tax-free. The CEO just got $100 million to spend on their lifestyle without paying a single dollar in income tax. They paid $2% dollar interest on the loan, but their stock is likely growing at $15% dollar or $20% dollar a year. They are getting richer while paying for their life with tax-free debt. This is why this system is so fatal to the average person's understanding of finance. The average person works their whole life to get a paycheck, which is taxed, and then they use what's left to buy assets. The billionaire uses assets to take out tax-free debt, which they then use to live, allowing the assets to grow untaxed. The final piece of the puzzle is the die part, the part that ensures the tax is never paid. Let's assume the CEO lives for 50 more years, continuing to defer their tax liability using these stock options and tax-free loans. They die holding their initial 1 million shares, plus all the others they acquired over the years, now worth, let's say, $1,000 per share or $1 billion in total. The initial cost basis, the price they paid to acquire the ISO shares, was just $10 million. The paper gain is $990 million. If the CEO had sold the day before they died, their estate would have owed hundreds of millions in capital gains tax. But because they held the shares until death, the step-up in basis rule applies. This rule essentially tells the IRS, forget what the CEO paid for it. The cost basis is stepped up to the stock's market value on the day the CEO died. In our example, the cost basis instantly jumps from $10 million to $1 billion. The heirs inherit the stock, sell it the next day for $1 billion, and owe zero capital gains tax because there is no taxable gain. The $990 million fortune generated by the CEO over 50 years of work and growth is never taxed by the federal government. The heirs can use the $1 billion. They just got to pay off any remaining securities-backed loans taken out by the CEO, and whatever is left is tax-free wealth, ready to start the cycle again for the next generation. This entire sequence, from the granting of the ISOs, the strategic exercise, the long-term holding to convert to capital gains, the use of tax-free loans to fund life, and the final step up in bases is the blueprint for almost all dynastic tech wealth today. It's a system designed to keep assets perpetually in motion, growing exponentially, while keeping the cash flow for the owners tax-free. It's not a temporary glitch. It's the fundamental architecture of modern economic power. This is why, no matter how much you raise the tax rate on ordinary income, it does not affect the ultra-wealthy. Their wealth isn't income. It's a tax-deferred capital asset, constantly leveraged into tax-free debt. The crisis is that the tax system is focused entirely on the paycheck, while the real wealth engine is in the stock market. The danger this poses is absolutely immense. As the world's wealth continues to concentrate in these untaxed assets, the tax burden shifts overwhelmingly to the working and middle class whose income is ordinary and taxed immediately. This fuels wealth inequality and creates a permanent, almost unbridgeable gap between those who work for a wage and those who own the assets. The system is doomed to become more top-heavy until something fatal breaks the chain. Understanding this is the first step toward understanding the economy of the future. If you want to understand more about how the ultra-rich play the game, subscribe to the channel right now.